Hello, and thank you for joining us here on the Neutral Zone. I am Phil Milani, joined as always by my trusty sidekick, my partner in crime. Really, the best way to describe this person is my everything. It's at Eric Dalala.
Phil, great to be with you today.
It is nice to be with you. We are kicking off a 3-week stretch here of special editions of the Neutral Zone. We are counting down to camp.
Did you wear that shirt last week?
No, I would never do something like that.
Let's count down, baby.
We are counting down for the next 3 episodes. We'll be addressing a big topic of conversation here for the Broncos as we get set to kick off the 2022 season.
I'm excited. It's coming soon.
It is. It's sort of summertime. I enjoy this time of year, Eric, because it's a little bit of a reset.
It's a lull.
A little bit of a let's relax here because it's about to be on.
Like what?
No, just on.
Like Donkey Kong? No?
I would not say that.
Okay.
I would not ever say something.
Donkey Kong, not a sponsor.
Not a sponsor. Could be if
I
don't know.
Unsure.
That's true, yeah. But today's topic of conversation, Eric, is what does Russell Wilson have to prove this year? Personally for him. What is he out there playing for? What does he want to show? I'm sure that he's got a little bit of a chip on his shoulder as he sort of resets his career here in Denver. 10 seasons in Seattle, a lot of winning, but now it's time for a refresher.
Yeah. I mean, there's the obvious thing that I think of right away, which is the contract.
Yep.
And that could be done before the season even starts. We don't really know when that's going to happen. You would assume that would wait until after new ownership is in place. But obviously he's going to play for a contract at some point. That's kind of the result of everything that will come before that. And that's the main thing that he's going to have to prove is that he still belongs among those top-tier quarterbacks, the Patrick Mahomes, the Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, those types of guys, Aaron Rodgers. He's got to prove that he's still that guy, which he's been for a long time. But when you leave a team, Phil, when Peyton Manning left the Colts, for example, he was cut. They decided going with Andrew Luck over him was the better option for their football team. And granted, things weren't perfect in Seattle. Obviously, someone requested a trade, whether it's Seahawks who initiated that or Russ. But if they wouldn't have let him go if they believed like he's the best guy in the league and we got to keep him no matter what. And so he's going to prove to them, he's got to prove to the league that he's still one of those top tier guys. And I would think if you're Russ, you even want to exceed what you've done in the past because for everything you've done, he hasn't received an MVP vote, hasn't won an MVP, obviously, hasn't won a Super Bowl for several years. So a lot for him to show. But I think it's all about, is he still that elite guy?
Yeah. And I think for Russ, it starts by winning. I mean, by all accounts, everything that we hear about Russ, he's totally consumed by winning. This is all he thinks about. And the results in Seattle were out on the field. I mean, 8 double-digit win seasons. Eric, what's the say you like to say? He's the winningest quarterback through 10 years?
Yep.
Including postseason, right?
Including the postseason, yep.
He's a 9-time Pro Bowler, and he gets results out there. Do you know what I mean? And I think that the first thing he probably wants to do is get the Broncos back on their winning ways, I would say. I think if he came in here and took an organization that has had 5 consecutive losing seasons, 6 years without the playoffs, if he got the Broncos back into the playoffs, back on the right side of the record column, that would be number one for me, just to say, look, I'm a winner. Wherever I go, I win. And then personally for him, I think that if he's able to play winning football the way that he wants to play, with the offense that he wants to run. We hear that him and Nathaniel Hackett have sort of blended their offenses.
NASA, as you like to say.
The NASA offense is what I'm saying, just because Tim Patrick made it sound like nobody is even the work that they're doing in the meeting rooms, scientists haven't even come up with this sort of thing. That's how complex.
That's how impressive it is.
Yeah. If they're able to win playing his brand of football, I think that's probably the second thing that he really wants to prove because from what we hear, he wanted to really take some deep shots, air it out a little bit, play this more modern style of NFL football in Seattle. But maybe Pete Carroll wanted to win running the football, playing strong defense. That's worked a long time there in Seattle. I think he wanted to keep doing that, but Russ had different ideas. That's what we hear. So if Russ is able to come to Denver and win that way, I think that would be like another thing he's out to prove.
And I think you want your name at the top of those lists when you talk about who's the most valuable quarterback, who's the best quarterback. There's been times in his career, starting, I believe, in 2019, 2020, you heard that about Russ in terms of he might be the best guy out there. He might be the favorite for the MVP. That's kind of mellowed a little bit, and for whatever reason, the Broncos are talked about as one of the most improved teams. I know Adam Schefter a few months ago said I wouldn't call them the most improved team, but they're in that conversation. In that conversation, but they're not unquestioned Super Bowl contenders. There are still questions on this team, and I think with the way this roster is built, a lot of that is because people nationally are not sure what to expect from Russ. They're not sure, is he going to be the guy that is, if you throw it 35 times a game, that he's going to throw 4 touchdowns and no picks, that he's going to go out there and just blow people away. Obviously, we saw in 2013 what Peyton Manning could do in kind of that impressive push-it offense. Can Russ do something close? 40 touchdowns is the most he's had in his career. Can he get back up to that? Can he exceed that? That's what you're going to have to do, I think, to keep pace with Justin Herbert, Patrick Mahomes, and show that this is not just a team that can compete for a playoff bid, because if Russell Wilson, Phil, is as good as he's been at times in his career, this team can win a Super Bowl in year one.
Oh,
there's no doubt about that. And so I don't really understand, there's some hype locally, obviously, but there's a lot more questions about this team, and there's a lot of projections where the Broncos don't make the playoffs. And if I were Russell and I saw that stuff, I'd take that as a personal affront, because there are people that said if Aaron Rodgers comes to Denver, instant Super Bowl contender. You see some of that, but not as much as I would think, and that has to do with Russ.
Yeah, I would say there's probably 2 reasons for that. One, Russ is coming off of, statistically at least, his worst season as a pro. Last year, just 25 touchdowns and 6 interceptions, threw for 3,100 yards. Those aren't like the year before that, he threw for 4,200 yards, 40 touchdowns, and 13 interceptions. So
right.
A lot more offense that year. And also last year was the first time ever Russ missed the start. He had a little bit of an injury, worked through that, got back out on the field. But that was the first time that's ever happened. So those things maybe have let doubt enter the national conversation with him. And then I'd say maybe the second reason for that is the unsure of what to expect, just because this is Nathaniel Hackett's first year as a head coach here, first time as a play caller here in Denver. And we all know that it takes time for some of these things to meld. For when Peyton Manning was here, it took until week 6 before that offense really took off. It was not bad those first 6, but it took until halftime of that week 6 game against the Chargers for it to really click. And even for Nathaniel Hackett himself, in Green Bay that first year, it was still really good, but then it really took off in year 2. So I think that for those 2 reasons, maybe there's a little bit of we don't know what to expect. And also because it's a NASA offense, Eric.
That's right.
We just don't know. Scientists have never heard of this.
They don't even know what's happening.
Yeah. I think Elon Musk has been around here trying to get wind of it, but it's under lock and key.
He's been kept outside.
It's under lock and key.
Yeah. I think part of it, too, is as Russ gets older, the type of quarterback that he is, he has relied on in his career on athleticism, scrambling outside of the pocket and throwing it, taking off at times to pick up key first downs, avoiding sacks, all those things that he did early in his career. There's this sentiment that he didn't do that as much over the last few years, and so maybe now he's being limited to being a pure pocket passer. Obviously, Russ isn't the tallest guy, and so, is it harder for him to be a pure pocket passer as opposed to scrambling out to see some of these lanes? I just don't know if so much of this, Phil, is we just don't know. We don't know what version of Russ is going to show up. We don't know what the offense is going to look like exactly. We don't know how much is he going to scramble. If they're at the 5-yard line and people are covered, is Russ willing to take off and dive to the end zone for a touchdown? We just don't know those things. And you look at a guy, some of these quarterbacks, the way they age, it's like Tom Brady's never been mobile, so his game
matter.
goes from year to year to year.
Plus, he doesn't age. So
Well,
nice.
and like his game is not built on arm strength either, so it's not a big deal if he can't throw it 50 yards down the field. So I think part of it is people just, was 2021 with this injury, with some of the things that happened, was that an aberration or is that a trend? I would say after 10 years in the league, like you mentioned, 8 double-digit winning seasons, 8 playoff appearances, 9 Pro Bowls, I'd take the bet, and the Broncos have, that was an aberration. But he's got to go out and prove that he's still got a lot of good football left.
I think maybe one other reason why is we're doing a lot of projecting. A lot of people have talked about the weapons he has here in Denver, and they're saying this might be the best offensive grouping that he's ever had. But in order to say that, you're projecting that, like, hey, Jerry Jeudy will become the Jerry Jeudy we think he can be. The facts say that Jerry Jeudy did not catch a touchdown last year, and as a rookie, he only caught 3. Well, DK Metcalf has caught about 1 billion touchdowns up there in Seattle. We know what he can do, and so that's more of a sure thing. But here in Denver, what's Albert O? We know Albert O is going to be a big part of this offense. He's got the physical capabilities, but now he's got to go do it. And there's this sort of feeling that, they haven't done those things because they haven't had the quarterback. Now they've got the quarterback, so they got to go do those things. So I think there's some projecting that's going on. And until you really see it in action against another team, you really don't know what to expect for sure.
Right. Then the one thing I'll say, kind of my last thought on this, is that Russ has put in the work to try to make this work. There's been the extra meetings that we've heard about. All they do is meet. Russ is here really early. He's here really late.
Same time as you, or when?
Not that early, but pretty close. He's working out in the offseason. We see him on a football field in France. Like, he's putting the work in and not leaving any of this to chance, which is what you want when someone has something to prove. If he just kind of, I don't want to take shots at people, Phil, but
you like to do that.
But Aaron Rodgers, for example, signed this big contract. He's not even at OTAs.
He doesn't do OTAs. It's kind of like a Melvin Gordon. He just
kind of like that. And obviously it's voluntary, but if you want to hit the ground running and Russ was like, I want to prove something, but I'm not interested in this offseason program, you'd kind of wonder, how invested is he?
Yeah.
It is so clear that Russ is invested. He's brought a culture change to this building.
Yeah. And the podcast has improved.
The podcast is so much better. And I think that if the smart bet is to bet on Russ.
Eric, if you went to France, what would you be doing? I'm just wondering. You'd probably be drinking some wine.
Working.
You'd be enjoying some cheese, maybe.
Yeah.
Taking in the culture, some of the sights.
Working.
When Russ goes there.
Grinding.
Well,
he goes a little bit more often, so.
Oh, so he could do that.
Yeah. It's not as cool, probably.
Oh, you think it's
Monaco again.
Just in the French Riviera. It's fine.
Yeah.
Whatever.
I know Monaco's not in France.
No, but he's in France now, right?
Right.
Or no, actually, I think he's in London as we speak.
Yeah.
But this is in the future, so I don't know how.
I don't know where he is.
Where are we? A lot of confusion about where in the world Russ is. But what we do know is that he's working.
Yeah. And I think, Phil, at the end of the year, we'll look back, and maybe the Broncos have not won the Super Bowl. Maybe it's not exactly where you want to be. Maybe there's still some room for growth. But I think people are going to be very encouraged about the direction of this team, the way that Russ played, and feel good about this move.
There is sort of a feel, though, that hey, Tom Brady switched teams first year in Tampa, Super Bowl. Matt Stafford, first year in L.A., wins the Super Bowl. It can be done, and there's then this run here of these quarterbacks doing it. So I would say there is this feel around town that's it's possible.
It's certainly possible.
Plus the Avs just won the Stanley Cup. This town is a little bit...
They're juiced.
Yeah, exactly. And, Eric, working hard and learning the playbook and stuff, we talked to Peyton Manning about a month or two ago.
Yep.
And he said the one advantage Russ has is that everybody is learning this offense at the same time. It's not like Russ is joining a team where everything's already been established. Everybody's learning this, so he's got a chance to be a little bit ahead as a quarterback, and therefore it's natural for him to step into that leadership role. And I thought that was a really good point, something I hadn't thought about. But if Russ stays ahead, he can help these guys learn it because he's maybe just a step ahead. This is sort of a mix of his offense and Nathaniel Hackett, so he can help these other guys, and that makes you more of a natural leader. So certainly exciting, though. I'm sure the line when training camp gets started here in a couple of weeks to get in, it's going to be down the street.
Start lining up now.
It's going to be unlike what we've seen the last several years.
I think so.
And there's an excitement that Russ brings, and I think it's important to note that, like, there is something real about this.
Yep.
That's not just like hype. It's like, no, it's go time now.
Right.
So, all right. Well, that's our first look at camp coming up here, our countdown to camp, our first edition of a special stretch of Neutral Zone episodes. We'll be back next week with another special episode. Until then, for Eric Delisle, I'm Phil Milani. You've been listening to
The Neutral Zone.